first time I got married, my friend told me this theory that if you put a bean in a jar every time you have sex before you're married, and you take a bean out of the jar every time you have sex after you're married, you will never empty the jar. It was many years later, long after my divorce, that I was reminded of this theory. I was out for drinks with a friend, and I was in this place of absolute exuberance because I had started dating Robert, my second husband, and we were filling our bean jar. And my friend, who had been married for over 20 years, was in a very different place. She shared with me that one of the things she hated the most was when her husband crawled into bed at night and cuddled up behind her. All she wanted him to do in those moments was to get that thing out of her back. Perhaps some of you can relate. I will never forget her words. I was shocked and surprised, and I felt a little sad for her. And one of my other thoughts was, that's never going to happen to me. Can you guess what happened? It's after marriage and children, the beans stopped leaving the jar. To spice things up, Robert and I did an assortment of things. We watched movies together, we read erotica to each other, I wore the sexy lingerie. And along with those explorations, Robert promised to connect more deeply with me emotionally, and I promised to be more receptive to him sexually. And no matter what, it just never worked. The more that he desired me, the more I shut down. And the more I shut down, the more distant he became. We were caught up in this vicious cycle. And one day, after many years of this, Robert said to me that it was less painful for him to hate me than it was for him to love me. I didn't know what to do with this. And I certainly didn't want to feel the emotional impact of it. So I pushed it away with the rest of my stories. So we're going to take a moment here so that we can all do a silent, personal inventory of our stories. So I invite you to answer the following questions silently within yourself. Have you had a miscarriage? An abortion? Have you given a child up for adoption? Have you not been able to have children? Have you used your sexuality to manipulate? Have you performed duty sex? Have you lost interest in sex? Have you become addicted to sex? Have you been the recipient of an STD? A mistress? Have you cheated? Been cheated on? Been raped? Have you used, I said that one, have you given yourself away for love? Have you felt shame or embarrassment about your body? Have you had difficulty experiencing orgasm? Or have you been looked at, spoken to, or touched inappropriately in any way by anybody? I can answer yes to 12 out of those 17 questions. Had I asked you to stand if you answered yes to any of those questions, how many of us do you think would be standing right now? Everybody. It is so important to remember we are not alone. We are not our stories, and we have a choice. A huge piece that I discovered on my journey is that within our bodies, where we keep these stories, lives a wellspring of potential. And this wellspring specifically resides in our pelvic bowls, in our ovaries, our fallopian tubes, our uteruses, and our vaginas. Even if we do not have these physical organs, this is our root. It is where our authentic power lives, our wild woman, our feminine essence. It is the center of our physical body. It's the center of our energetic body. The fact is that the majority of us are not tapping into this natural resource that lives right inside our bodies. And sadly, the importance of this resource has been diminished in its importance by culture and religions over many thousands of years. We have been handed down through the generations a distorted, imbalanced, corrupt version of ourselves, our bodies, and our sexuality. In working with women, both privately and in small groups, I see that many of us have spent a lot of time, money, and energy on personal, professional, and spiritual growth work. And what has become apparent to me is this disassociation from our bodies and sexuality is causing a disruption in our ability to create the fulfilling lives that we desire. It is a missing link. When a woman awakens her feminine essence, her creative sensual center, her whole being radiates. And when a woman learns how to heal, transform, and utilize the sexual energy in her pelvis, she becomes a magnetic force. It really is about our relationship to ourselves. We do not have fertility organs so we can menstruate for 30 to 40 years or to have the allotted 2.3 children. These are organs of mass creation. Our creative capabilities, our confidence, our sense of belonging has a compelling relationship with what anatomically makes us women. Our sexuality is not separate from our spirituality. Our sexuality is not separate from our professional lives or our abilities to manifest. Our sexual energy is our life force, and it feeds every single aspect of our lives. Whether we believe it or not, we are erotic by nature. Our sexuality is not something that we can ignore any longer. It is a key component that needs to be integrated into our model of self-love and self-care. When I emerged on the other side of my psychological excavation of trying to figure out why I no longer wanted to have sex, and I stripped away all that I'd been taught and I had experienced about my body and sexuality, I created a new reality based on how I actually desired to feel about it. So my ask of you today is, how do you desire to feel about your sexuality? You can take your pens out and write whatever word comes to you down in your little books. I desire to feel pleasure. And one of the benefits of me taking pleasure into my own hands is that the beans are once again leaving the jar. We have come a long way as women. Our powers are not the same powers as our glorious male counterparts. What makes us powerful is our intuitions, our feelings, and our sensuality. It is now time for us to reclaim our beautiful bodies, connect deeply with our feminine essence, and take the wild woman off of the endangered species list.